Hello and welcome back to the Chat OK podcast, where I discuss media in the forms of reviews and discussions. I'm your host, Frankie Thomas Hughes, and today, obviously, before I get into what I'm today, I'll take you back to last week real quick, where obviously I covered the early thoughts on WWE 2K25, and then I did the review on, obviously, Plankton the movie. And before I started all that, I mentioned, I think it was before, it might have been after actually, I did mention that in the near future, i.e. in the next couple of weeks, maybe the next month at a push, I would be covering Alan Wake 2, since I've obviously already done the rest of the Alan Wake universe so far. And I mentioned I'll be covering that because I was close to the end, but I didn't know actually how long I was going to be until I hit the end. So that's why I kind of gave like a vague time frame, at least, for that episode. Well, it's come quicker than I thought. I decided to sit down this past weekend and just bash through as much as possible, and I pretty much got through the ending quite quickly. So I'm here to talk about that. I won't be talking about the DLC, so that I won't be talking about the Night Springs DLC or the Lake House DLC. I have not touched them yet. Well, I haven't touched the Lake House at all, but I have done the first Night Springs one. It was an accidental thing because if you've not played the game, basically the Night Spring DLC and the Lake House you can access obviously via the game menu, but at certain points in the actual game, it will give you an option to be able to do it at that point. It's like you don't have to do it here, you can access it later, or you can just do it right here. And I accidentally did the first episode of Night Springs during an Alan mission. Basically, Night Springs won't come on TV. They come on the TV, like I did in the first game, obviously an episode of Night Springs. So I thought, oh, maybe I got to click on this TV to watch Night Springs, like I was in the first one. I was like, that's a good callback. Problem was, when you click on it, it actually takes you to the DLC mission, which it didn't spoil anything for me, if that's okay, because the missions are kind of like little one-shot stories. I did the diner hostess mission, which was quite unique, crazy, which to be fair makes sense since the whole game is fucking crazy. But that's all I'd touch on the DLC. I've got to do that actually maybe in the next few days, or I might have done it by this point. The episode goes out, I'm not too sure yet. It depends when I get a chance to sit down and actually play for them. So yeah, my main focus here is on the actual game itself, which obviously came out in 2023, and it obviously was nominated for multiple Game of the Year awards across multiple different end of the year award categories. Shows. Walked away a few as well. Not necessarily, didn't walk away a lot with the actual Game of the Year, I don't think. It walked away with a lot more of the other awards. Obviously, it was also nominated at our first Golden Cave Awards show, where, as I said, just like a lot of these other awards, it lost out in the end to the actual Game of the Year that year, which was, of course, Baldur's Gate 3. And this is no Baldur's Gate 3, because that game is just its own kind of special game in a cool way, I mean. But this is something different. Obviously, I brought this back in December 2023. I'm pretty sure kind of brought it at the same time, because Epic had like this huge sale on, as they always do during winter. And they obviously gave coupons as well. So if you spent 20 quid, you got so much off as well. And obviously, Alan Wake 2 Deluxe Edition and the Basic Edition was on sale. So obviously, I brought a Deluxe Edition to get the Season Pass for the DLC that was coming out in 2024. Because of buying that, you basically got Alan Wake Remaster for free. And obviously, also picked up the American Nightmare game. But obviously, I bashed through everything else before this game, because I was like, I need to sit through the rest of this franchise before I can get to Alan Wake 2, because I won't have a fucking clue what's going on. Because the closest I got to playing Alan Wake 1 was probably around the time Quantum Break was out. Again, I got the first game for free via a code that was with the game. I literally not paid for Alan Wake 1. I've got it free both times. I got the basic version and the remaster for free on two different, obviously on console and PC. Obviously, I sat through them. I mean, I reviewed the first one. I then sat through American Nightmare, reviewed that. And then I did Control, which was obviously a different type of game to the normal, obviously the basic Alan Wake. It was obviously, yes, it had horror elements, but it wasn't as horror as Alan Wake was. But then obviously you got this one. This one, Alan Wake 2, is a vast improvement over the first one. Don't get me wrong, first one's good, but this improves so much and gives you more of a story to make it stand out more than its predecessor. Obviously, you're not just playing as Alan this time. Heck, you don't get to play as Alan until like the third chapter in the story, really. I say third chapter, it's a chapter's place third, but it's not really the third chapter because both sets of characters in this game have their own list of chapters. They're both about 9 chapters each. A couple of Alan ones are fucking pissy. You literally just sit there and just watch a video, or just listen to dialogue. It's there's nothing much in them, compared to obviously Saga's one, which is a lot of action. And I like that. I like obviously that there's these two distinct, different stories that obviously are very intertwined. So a lot of Alan stuff. At the end of some of them, you're seeing his perspective of a cutscene that you saw with Saga. I do like the intertwining there. That is actually pretty cool. And that's what, as I say, this makes this one stand out over its predecessor. Obviously, this one also leans very much more into the survival horror. Because the first one, yeah, it was survival horror to an extent. But this one leans into it in the sense of, obviously, you got an inventory system now, which is a new gameplay mechanic they've added. Because I said to Connor, I said, do you remember like an inventory system in the first game? And he was like, I don't remember there being one. I remember being just what you collect. You just collect so much of it until basically you're full on ammo or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I kind of remember it being like that. But this one obviously adds that, your run-of-the-mill survival horror inventory where obviously you got to keep tabs on what you've got because you literally can run out of space. You can find stuff in the world that can make your inventory a bit bigger. It's usually in the cult stashes. I found one that basically made my inventory like 1 slot bigger, which was excellent because it meant I can carry around more weapons. Definitely reminds me, obviously, well, because I haven't played many survival horrors, but for me, obviously, the inventory system, obviously, Resident Evil is the big one that I get brought to when seeing this survival horror type game. Because obviously, that as well is another one where you got to keep an eye on what gun I can carry, what ammo, what health I can have on me. So this for me is it takes inspiration from that, and for it leaning more into survival horror, that makes sense, having a proper inventory system, rather than just collecting ammo until you're basically stocked up, or just having so many guns on you at a time. It basically means you got to think, do I carry this or do I not? Like, for example, I found most of the guns. I think the only one, did I find that? Because kind of the basic gun, isn't it? But I found the crossbow, the bolt-action rifle, the double-barrel shotgun, and the pump-action shotgun. I found all those guns, and obviously towards the back end, obviously I got rid of the double-barrel because of the fact I had the pump-action, which was a lot, obviously, easier to fucking use because you can carry more ammo. So obviously, I was watching what I had because obviously that and the rifle are fucking massive. It's the same with the crossbow; they're big enough that it just takes up a lot of inventory space. So I was kind of monitoring. Okay, can I carry this? Can I carry that? And that obviously adds more to the survival horror element because you're kind of like, well, I'm trying to survive this. What's best to carry on me at this time? So I really liked obviously them adding that system. I did make a few notes that I'm going to quickly look at. Obviously, this story itself is set 13 years after the original Alan Wake game. So obviously, it makes sense since it came out in 2023. That was 13 years after Alan Wake 1 came out. So this story picks up in 2023 after the original events that took place in 2010. I said 2020, then 2010 the original events took place in. And I say you don't play as Alan for the first 2 chapters. It's fully on Saga, who's investigating the death of an FBI agent, or at least a former agent. And obviously her and her partner, who obviously is designed after the guy who actually makes the game, Sam Lake, but he's voiced by the actor, obviously the late actor who played Max Payne. So you're getting to showcase her side of the story, what she can do, i.e. Her mind place, which allows her to solve cases a lot easier. So in her mind, she can see the case board, so put pictures on there, point out obviously the classic string and pin system. Yeah, this connects to that, this connects to that. You get to do that, which is pretty cool. Obviously, you got all the maps in this mind place, so you can see all the locations where you can collect the stashes, just in general where you need to go. You've got the weapon upgrades in her mind. You can access the radio, the TV, so if you can listen to the music, you can watch the TV commercials you find, which are pretty funny. And of course, the big thing in there as well, you can access the manuscript. That's another thing you can find in there, and the interrogation mode, basically. So obviously, if she thinks someone's lying, she can sense it, and then she can literally just in her mind, she can grill their mind, being like, "What are you hiding from me?" And obviously, that allows her to then actually ask the questions in real life. Essentially, it's another pause menu, but it's a very cool and interesting pause menu because it allows her to showcase her obviously cop abilities, her very, I want to say like supernatural abilities, for the fact that she can literally grill someone through their mind, like, which is pretty cool. So it allows you to obviously go full cop, which is excellent. And obviously, eventually, when Alan comes into the game, he has his own version of that, which is obviously his writer's room. So obviously, he gets a lot of the same thing: TV, radio. Instead of the gun, he gets the word of power, which obviously is upgrades for his torches, his guns. It allows him to upgrade everything basically, but you have to find that within the dark place. And obviously his big thing then, instead of the basic crime board, it's the writer's board, where you can actually, if you go to a certain place, i.e. The murder sites, which is obviously his whole thing, he's trying to access murder sites to then progress further through this dark place. Obviously he slaps a picture on the board like obviously Saga does, but then you can change the landscape around you based on the scene you found. So you can obviously say, for example, you're in the train. Obviously, the first one you get to is like the underground train system. There you can slap on murder site or basically something along that line, and it will change the whole landscape around you to match that new story, and you can find more information about what happened there. And that's really cool to me. I like that they've both got very much the same sort of idea in terms of they both have this power within their mind, but they both have different perspectives of this power. One is obviously because of being a cop, she gets the power. Obviously, that helps her do her job as being a police officer. Well, an FBI agent, and then him being a writer, he has the power to obviously write the world around him, because that's the whole point in this game. Is the stories are his stories coming to life because of this dark place bringing them to life. So I really like that new system. It was really fun, and obviously the last chapters utilized both heavily, and that was really fun to go through. I mean, there's a few jump scares in this one, I will add, and in the last chapter I got jump scared during the mine place with Saga. Like, I was not expecting like something just to appear behind me, and it was one of those classic ones where you just turn around, it's just something standing there, and I let out such a yelp. It made me laugh afterwards more than anything, rather than going, for fuck's sake, my heart's beating. It was more just like, fuck's sake, it was such a simple, basic jump scare, which a lot of these are. They're very simple, like flash on the screen sort of thing, but they still make me go like that, like clench up, because it just got me, and that's good. I mean, if you're making something horror and you're gonna throw in these jump scares, at least make sure they're not expected and they will get you, because then that makes it more horrifying. And on top of that, it keeps you more on the edge of your seat, being like, please don't fucking get me. Please don't fucking jump scare me. I said they did that really well. Just like they handled the time jump of the story really well. Because realistically, if you want to be being honest here, they could have set the game straight after the first one. They could have had it follow Alan navigating this dark place, trying to get out. They could have done it that way. But I feel like the huge time jump works in its favour. Because obviously it makes that Alan being missing like this huge case that obviously happened ages ago, and it allows the town as well to develop more, because there's a lot more with this town in terms of characters they've added, and obviously how they're dealing with kind of the events of the past, and how they've been dealing with everything that's came from this event going forward, i.e. obviously the cult stuff that happens in this story, because there's a lot of twists and turns in the story, which definitely make this a really interesting story, because there's a lot of things where it's just a case of, well, I didn't see that being that, obviously that, so you, like, for example, like, you look at something and you're like, okay, that's like this, but then later on it changes something slightly, and you're like, that's changed my perspective on this whole thing entirely. And I say there's like a massive thing that changes your perspective on the entire game that gets dropped during, I want to say, like, chapter 6-ish, chapter 6, chapter 7, like a huge like plot twist which kind of changes your perspective on what's going on. I say I won't go into it because I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't played it, because it's generally something that you want to witness for yourself, because I can only say how much this game is like insane. Because the game's insane, basically. I don't do drugs, but it feels like a crazy ass drug trip. Because it's just, I say there's just a lot of craziness going on within the story that makes you go, what the fuck is going on? And you're doing that most of the time. You're literally saying, what the fuck's going on? But in a good way. And obviously this one as well, it keeps the same thing with the last one. There's a lot of obviously collectibles you can find. Most of the collectibles are with Saga's story. So obviously the manuscripts you can find, the cult stashes, and the nursery rhymes. Obviously those are things she can find, and that obviously when you get them all, you get achievements. I know the nursery rhymes, if you collect all, if you complete, or all of them, I don't know how many there actually is. If you complete them all, you get access to one final one, which gets you another nursery rhyme doll, which you use to access these points, and you get an achievement for that. But I got all the dolls but that one, because I never actually finished it. Because I got to the point of towards the end where I was like, I was doing the collectibles, but I was like, I know Assassin's Creed is out this week, so I'm like, how am I going to get a chance to actually finish this right now? Because I don't really want to delay this till like fucking God knows when, especially since I know I'm that close to finishing. So I literally, I was going to watch the football, and I was like, no, fuck it. My mind's fully focused on finishing this game, and I just smashed through the ending of it, because I want to try and get the DLC done before Assassin's Creed comes out on Thursday. So I'm hoping by the time this goes out, I've got that DLC done, and I'm just put my feet up there and enjoying some Assassin's Creed Shadows. My fingers are crossed on that. So yeah, I was doing the collectibles, and I got quite a few of them. But it's just after a while, there's just, because with Control, for example, with the collectibles and that, you can fuck with the settings and just fly around the fucking map, which was so fucking fun to do. And it helped collect the collectibles once I was finished with the main story. Whereas this, you kind of fucked, because obviously I found all the settings in the end where you can make yourself invulnerable, one shot kills, you can't die. What else? Infinite ammo, infinite help. But yeah, I basically found all the little tweaky settings which make it a nicer experience, which I probably will use when I play for it again eventually. Because, not having to worry about dying in the game will make it easier to collect the collectibles. But yeah, obviously the settings with this one obviously aren't as being easy, making it easier to navigate. Because I said the flying with Control was so much easier, because you can just flow as high as you like to get the hidden collectibles. Whereas this one, I say, you're kind of walking a lot, and there's 3 map locations to walk through. So you got Bright Falls, you got Watery, and you've got what's the fucking Cauldron Lake. You got 3 different maps for Saga to walk around. So there's a lot of walking, and I say in the end, I kind of just gave up with the collectible hunt. I was like, I'll do it another time. I'm not as fussed doing it right now. I just want to get the story done. What else? I got my notes here. Pretty much mentioned that. Obviously, there's a couple of boss fights in the game. They're very simple enough, which this game doesn't really require, too over the top boss fights. Like, yeah, you find these possessed fucking people, but obviously, especially with that with Control, obviously you having the abilities, technically, it's the stuff that made the boss fights obviously a lot more intense. Whereas this one, the intensity comes from just being the fact that you're an old person dealing with these monsters. So there's no need to have the fights too over the top. I think they work very much being this kind of toned down boss fight. These very basic, simple boss fights. I think that works in this game's favour. What else have we got? Obviously, yeah, the game leans very heavily in psychological horror, which I said that leads to all these more jump scares every now and again, just to try and fuck you up mentally. Obviously, probably my 2 favourite chapters I will say in this game are the Herald of Darkness chapter, for Alan's side, and then for Saga's it was chapters, I want to say 7. I think it was called the Summoning. That chapter was, where obviously you're trying to summon Wake into the real world, and I'll say there's a lot of twists and turns within that, and obviously that's fun because it's action packed. There's music going. It's very much like that mission in Control, where you get the song Control playing, where you're kind of just running through these rooms, shooting away. It kind of reminds me of that, but obviously it's condensed just to this beach where every now and again they'll drop ammo for you, they drop batteries for you to use, drop flares, the rocket flares as well. They're pretty useful. They're mods to fucking, because obviously I think you can get a flare gun. Can you get one with Saga? I'm not too sure. There might be one lying around. I'm not too sure. But obviously to counter if you don't, you got the rocket flares, which pretty much act the exact same way as the flare gun, just without the use of a gun. But yeah, those 2 missions for me are just my favourite ones. A, the music, and B, the gameplay. Specifically the gameplay with the Saga one. The Alan one, it's simply just walking through different areas while Herald of Darkness is playing on big screens around you, which are pretty, as I said, they're pretty fun. I think the only missions are a bit lacking are probably some of the ones on Alan's side where you mainly just listen to obviously his wife talking. Obviously they're more story development than action, especially considering the fact that the previous missions usually before them are the murder site missions. So you're doing this more action, you're doing these more horror moments. So it makes sense that you got this chapter just to wind down a bit. What else we got? Obviously, because this being set in the same universe as Control, there is a lot of references to that game, and I'm happy that I sat through that game as well, because there's obviously there's not characters from, well, there's one character from Control that appears in this game, but obviously the whole bureau is referenced quite a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that if you play Control, you'll obviously recognize those references. Like you don't have to play the game. Obviously, if you didn't want to, you can just jump straight into Alan Wake 2 if you've obviously played the previous games, but it's a nice little bit of extra information, in my opinion, to get you through this game. So the character that does appear, that also appears in Control, I was sitting there going, "Oh, it's the guy from Control," and I know that because of playing that game. But as if you obviously didn't, you'd just be going, "This is this random guy." But as soon as I recognised it was the voice more than anything, I was just like, "Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy I remember seeing in that game as well." So it's a nice little useful game to have played with a lot of information that won't fully affect this, but it's just an idea of what the Bureau is all about. That is what's useful, especially since there is an Alan Wake DLC in that game, if you do remember. If you don't, obviously, I pretty sure I mentioned it within my review on it, and that does explain it. Obviously, it does add Alan Wake gameplay elements into that game, and there's also reference then of them going to Bright Falls to deal with an AWE, and that's what obviously this one is about. Because I'm pretty certain there's a name reference to not the file in that game, and I'm 90% sure that's obviously the agent you deal with in this, obviously the later chapters of obviously Alan Wake 2. So I think that's pretty. I like the idea of this shared universe, especially since they are very similar games, but they're also kind of different at the same time. And I think that is pretty cool. And I'm interested to see if they obviously how they expand upon this world with Control 2, I believe, that is in the works, and if they do Alan Wake 3, that one. But I'm also be interested to see if they do another game in this universe, or if it's just those 2 games set in this universe. I'm just interested to see where they go with, obviously, the Remedy universe. So I think Quantum Break, to an extent, has some sort of link. I don't think it's fully linked because of the fact that the main character from Control, the actor who plays him, obviously he's also playing a copper in this during the start and then a few scenes later on in the game. What else have I got? Obviously, my main complaint with this game is mainly some glitches and bugs I encountered. The biggest one I had was a game-breaking glitch. From Chapter 5 onwards, I mainly got it. I'd never got it before that, but it was Chapter 5 onwards. It was during the Mind Play stuff. When you access Saga's crime board, every now and again, you get stuck. You can't exit the crime board. You have to reload the save. which obviously if you didn't save recently, you're fucked. I think a lot of times I was relying on the autosave because it said save points are certain points of the map, and if you're nowhere near and you access the mine place, you're screwed. And so I literally, like for example, I got stuck in there. I think it was the start of chapter 7, and I had to roll back and do like an entire conversation again. Luckily, you can skip, but that's like a game-breaking bug I found. The other thing I found, which I've read a lot of people had the issue as well, on the PC version at least, was sound issues where sound would either just cut out. So you have the conversation going, but then you'd miss like half it because it'd just be cutting out and then cutting back in. And the other thing would be sometimes it would just be delayed, so it would cut out and then it was obviously the conversation would start, but obviously it'd be well after. So if you got subtitles on, you're reading the subtitles most of the time because the actual dialogue would end up cutting out when this scene transition ends. Specifically during a lot of the car driving sequences it happened in. So that's like two of my issues I had with this game, which stop it from being this pretty perfect game. There was another thing, let's see if I can find it. So the other thing which I have mixed feelings on is the fact that you can kind of jump between the two stories rather than just being this very linear story where obviously. So for example, obviously at the end of chapter 2, when you jump to Alan's chapter, obviously once you've finished once you basically get to a certain point, I think it's like that's the first 2 or 3 with him, you can then jump back to Saga and you keep jumping back and forth until you kind of get locked out of Alan's story during the final chapter of his, because you need to get up to the point of the 7th chapter with Saga to actually fully access his final outing. I'm not a big fan of that. I kind of wish the game would ultimately just place you, obviously just play it as a straight story on a straight line, so you got the line, you got Sagas there, and it just keeps jumping when it requires it, rather than you having to do it yourself. Because I had to look at guides where people are saying this is kind of the order I found which kind of worked best for the story, and I followed it as best I could, but it's still at points where I'd do an extra mission on one side before I'd actually be able to do the side it told me to do. I kind of say I just wish they kind of they put the story, the world changes in them, obviously themselves. It wasn't up to you when you wanted to go play Alan's story, when you want to play Saga's story. It was the game's direction. That's my main complaint with the story, is just that I'm not a big fan of that side of it. I just wish they chose when you swapped story rather than whenever you wanted to. I feel like the only time you can get away with that, well, not necessarily. You could probably argue that you could jump to Saga's story, and it would tell you, okay, this is the mission point. You actually need to go to Alan's mission at this point. So what you need to do, you can either go to it now or just the free roaming stuff. Which obviously during I think it was chapter 7, which is the kind of the end game portion of the game. So it literally warns you that point of no return. You basically can't do a lot of free roaming in Bright Falls or Watery after this point. You're just stuck in Cauldron Lake, so it kind of just locks you in there. Just like, do you want to continue now or do you want to do the free roaming? So obviously, maybe at certain points it'll tell you that consistently and be like, okay, you're needed at the point technically in Alan's story, but you can stay here, just do the free roaming, come back here to access obviously the swap when required. I kind of wish it did that. But let's say if you follow like guides online which tell you the best sort of story way to do the story, you can kind of get away with this. But it's just one of those ones where it's like maybe you could have slightly tweaked it a bit differently in terms of obviously that. And then the other mixed feelings I really have is towards the ending, because there's 2 endings. You can only access the second ending by replaying the game in the final draft mode, where you get obviously more lore throughout. You can find more manuscripts that aren't in the base game. So then you get the extension on the ending. I think my mixed feelings come from the fact that you got to replay it just to get the kind of the true ending, I guess. So I kind of have mixed feelings on the fact that you're being forced to replay straight away if you want to see this true ending. I googled it. I watched it on YouTube. I couldn't be asked to sit through it straight away. I mean, I will sit for it again eventually, but it'll probably be months down the line. I mean, it took me over a year to actually sit down and play this game, so probably months down the line, if not fucking a year or 2, before I eventually find time to sit down and replay it. So I'm kind of annoyed that it's making you want to have to play it again just to get this extended ending. But I say I watched it on YouTube, and then which then makes obviously my mixed feelings come from which ending suits this game better. The sort of abrupt ending, and then obviously the final monologue, or this actual extended ending. I don't know which suits the game better, because you got the sort of happier ending, which is part of the New Game Plus style of draft, and then you've got, I say, the base ending, which I say is the more kind of cuts to black, and you don't know what's going to happen next before you get the credits, and then I say you get the two end credit scenes, which add to it, but not fully, not add to the actual ending. It just adds a bit more story to what's been going on throughout the game, and also the possibility of a next game, which obviously the extended ending does is in its own way, but differently. So it's kind of like, which one suits it better, the happier ending or the cut to black ending? I think that's what my mixed feelings come, because either have one ending or don't have. Obviously, just have one ending. I don't see the need for the two endings. It's interesting because it does make you want to play the game again just to see this different take on the ending. But obviously, because of, I say, me not going to be able to play this for ages now, a lot of other games coming out, I just thought I want to see what the ending is so I can give an opinion for this. As I say, both are interesting in their own right. They both have pros and cons, but as I say, I don't know which one suits this game better. But I say overall, it's a fun game. The horror elements are there. There's action, some interesting story development, and it's obviously an interesting continuation on the Alan Wake story after the ending of the game in 2010. So I know they were trying to make this way back then, but obviously the sales weren't very good in the first game, so they just kind of cancelled it and then did Quantum Break instead. But they eventually decided to come back to this universe, this side of the universe, and I'm very happy they did, because I really enjoyed the first Alan Wake, and obviously to an extent I enjoyed that American Nightmare. It's a smaller game, but it was a fun little game, and as I say, I've definitely enjoyed the upgrade that is Alan Wake 2. I'm trying to see what else I got in these notes here. Obviously the game perfectly blends live action cutscenes with its obviously traditional CGI game cutscenes. It blends them perfectly. It's quite interesting watching. Obviously, essentially just watching a TV. Obviously, it's basically you're watching a movie that you can play every now and again. Because obviously they did that with Quantum Break, in the sense of the episodes in between were live action, and you had the game to play in between them. So this takes that idea, but it's like, okay, what if the live action stuff is merged properly within the game, rather than just depending on your actions beforehand? Because I know with the Quantum Break, your actions depended on which episode you got. So I like the fact that they're like, okay, what if this was all just one big fucking within the game properly done? Because I said the problem with Quantum Break 1, you kind of had to download the episodes, because if you're trying to watch them online, obviously watch them like properly live in the game, it doesn't work anymore. I tried it before, and it's like you have to download it, and it's like a massive fucking file for the episodes. I was like, fuck that. So I remember correctly when I played it, was it last year or the year before? I sat down and played it again. I think it might have been last year. It might have been after I played Controls. Like, I kind of want to play that again. I remember just obviously lining up a playlist of the episodes on YouTube and just watching them, stopping them, watching them, putting the game back on. I remember I kept doing that because it was the only way I could get it to work. So I'm happy they didn't bother doing that this time. I'm happy they intertwined it properly within the game. Specifically for the Alan stuff, he's the one that deals with the more live action cutscenes, which is pretty cool. I say it blends them really well and makes an even more funner experience. It's just generally a very solid game that has a few minor issues which stop it from being outstanding for me. Which I think for rating, I'll give Alan Wake 2 a 9 out of 10. It's probably the best of this Remedy universe so far. It's definitely better than Alan Wake 1. Definitely better than American Nightmare. It's definitely better than Control. mainly because obviously I love horror. I may not be a big fan of horror games, but this for me is a really good horror game. Um, yes, I really like Control, and I liked a lot of the craziness within that. But I think for me, this just tops it. Because I say it's got a very interesting story, and it's got two very interesting protagonists that are both trying to deal with the horror in their own way. So I think this one just about hits the top for me for the Remedy ones. I say you tweak out those issues, and there's a good chance it's maybe closer to a 10 out of 10, if not a 10. But I think a 9 with these issues I've had on PC, and just the issues I've had that aren't glitches, they just do bog it down a little bit. But I think a 9 is pretty reasonable, and I can understand why it picked up quite a few game awards, because it's fucking really good. I mean, the gameplay's good, the music's good, the acting's good, the horror is great. It's got everything. So yeah, 9 out of 10. Obviously, if you played Alan Wake 2, put your thoughts on the game in the comments below. If you played the DLCs, because I say I might have played them by this point this episode goes out, might have not. If you have played the DLCs, obviously put your thoughts on them as well in the comments below. Obviously, if you haven't checked out my other videos related to this, obviously I'll link them all in the description below. So you say you got the Alan Wake, it's obviously mini game, the American Nightmare, and the Control game. All of them will be linked in the description below. I'll even link this one in their description. So if you're finding this video because of that, great. So yeah, what I might do if I do finish the DLCs before next week, I might cover them as a video, just like just talking about the DLCs. I might and I might not. It depends how I feel. But if I don't, it is what it is. We'll move on to something else instead. Obviously, you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, etc., etc. Or you can see my ugly mug on video on YouTube. And yeah, other than that, prison that covers everything. So I hope you enjoyed this talking Alan Wake 2, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And, well, I'll see you on the next video.